the show where boutique firm leaders trade less admin for more advisory. Each week, we share actionable tactics to keep your client pipeline full and your team performing at its best. I'm your host, Jaden. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Jaryd Visser, co-founder of Emberley, a growth consultancy that helps B2B founders align their go-to-market strategy, offers, and revenue systems so they can scale faster with leaner teams. Jaryd, welcome. Could you kick us off with a quick look at your background, what led to founding Emberley, and I also see that you have another business?
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for the great introduction, Jaden. It's great to be here. Great to chat about sort of the future of consulting, what's going with you. I'm excited for it. So yeah, I will dive into some background, kind of explanation of who I am. So to start off, I guess you go back to kind of where I started my entrepreneurial journey. I started when I was 16, I think 16, 17. Um, just standard story, wanted to make money online, saw other people doing it. And so I mean, I grew up in South Africa, which is like a third world country, right? So there wasn't the traditional path did not offer as much opportunity as even here or any other first world country. So I was like, I have nothing to lose here. I might as well take the risk and take the chance. So my risk appetite was always pretty big. And so yeah, I started first kind of taste of business was direct to consumer e-commerce, where I would kind of just look at what was doing well, because I knew that we were always lagging behind first world countries in terms of like what went to market. So I was just looking at what was doing well, bringing it into South Africa. And yeah, it was really good. I learned a lot about most aspects of business and made a bit of money in that. Just tried a bunch of other things because I was just trying to figure myself out and get a taste of as much as possible and learn as quickly as possible. And then I was planning to go to college in the US and play tennis. And off post COVID, like maybe this was 2020, 2021, I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I'm going full. I'm going to take 1 year and go full on in business. And so this was also as AI was starting to trend more and more, and the industry was really taking off, and the interest was booming. And I came from I went to a very tech enabled school. So I had a pretty good tech background. And so I decided to just go into AI, spend all my time kind of understanding where the market's going, where the opportunity is. And so I started a company just building out AI solutions for various different companies, basically anyone to just learn about it. And as I was doing that and I was talking to people that were also building the space, I kind of saw a trend as to like people were just building a product to build a product, and they didn't understand how to really take it to market, where they were going, where they were fitting into the market. And so a lot of them just died out as quickly as they kind of started. And so I then, I niched down the sort of AI dev agency into recruitment more, which is the other thing that you were seeing in my profile. And I have a partner in that, so that thing is still running. But then as I got more into enjoying and just understanding helping people like go to market with AI solutions, that was kind of the birth of starting Emberley. And so I knew I wanted to go down that ride. I just didn't know how. And then this was actually last year in Cape Town is where I met my co-founder. He's from LA, and he was out there. We met maybe a month and a half later. We just really hit it off, and he had already started something similar because again, he was in like also just kind of consulting, but it was more so he was trying to be a growth consultant or operator for creators in the digital space, like selling online products. And the consensus was like a lot of people were just selling on fluff, and there was no like accountability in terms of implementation. And so he studied math at college. I'm also a big math guy and obviously tech guy. And so we just thought towards, I think September last year, made nothing but sense to partner up. And that's how kind of the company was born. And we've been moving really, really quickly since we started, like very, very quickly. So we live together right now out in Dallas, which is where our company is based. So Yeah, it's been really fun. It's been really beneficial to also be living with the person that you're running the company with. So yeah.
I can imagine. And for those who don't know, could you give us a quick high-level rundown of, what problem does Emberley solve for founders kind of day to day?
Yeah. Of course. So we, like I mentioned earlier, the consensus that we both, sort of realized just in different industries was that a lot of people, consultants, coaches, whatever you want to call them, that try to sell people on helping them grow their business. They sold on like they would just push case studies in your face. Oh, I helped this person do this. There was a lot of fluff to it, and there was no real accountability and accountability in terms of implementation as to what mechanism specifically are you going to implement in my company to improve it. It was just like, oh, we're kind of gonna help you do this and this is how we've done it with someone in a completely different industry. We're going to help you do this. And so a lot of people get obviously overwhelmed with certain good case studies, but it was just we saw a big gap in, and that's how we found our sort of unique mechanism that allowed us to differentiate ourselves was to just take a very data first approach to just becoming full on growth consultants. And so initially we started out the company as we would just build out like tracking systems, source attribution, like kind of aligning sales and marketing in a very basic form to people that didn't have it whatsoever. So people that were selling, any form of digital product or service via organic channels or paid channels. And they had no idea where their traffic was coming from. They had no idea what worked. And so there was no repeatable process for them to follow. One month they would do really well. The next month they would drop down at like 60, 70% in revenue and they wouldn't understand why. And so the first thing that we would like kind of started selling and implementing for those people was just tracking and attribution systems. So we built out these dashboards to show all the data that was being tracked and collected from what these people were doing. So all the inputs and outputs of the company basically on a day-to-day basis, payment, calls, et cetera, where they were all coming from. And so that was kind of our like we sold that as our mechanism and was more so of a product really. And then we realized that the product was great, but if you give it to someone that doesn't understand how to capitalize on it and how to really use it properly, the impact of it was not as great in the company if it was, the actual person that we were selling it to that was looking at the data because they don't know what actions to take based off the insights that they were getting. And so then we moved into more of an advisory role. We would move into more of an advisory role in the company over and above sort of the foot in the door, which was the tracking and attribution that most people didn't really have set up. And then from there, we we just started as we were learning more and understanding more and looking at where the gaps were and the current clients that we sold to and just digesting all this data. Because I mean, we got to a point where we would have like the the exact data points of 25, 30, 35 people in different niches doing anywhere from 20 to like 200K a month. And so we could literally using real-time data tell whether a service was going to do well, whether a coaching offer was going to do well, whatever software, because we now know what to look for. And I think that helped us like really grow as quickly as we did in terms of understanding just the fundamentals of how to grow a company and the approach of it. And so, yeah, like I was saying, we went into more of an advisory role and now we're kind of more segmented into have the advisory side where whether someone has tracking implemented or has, data tracking implemented or not, we would go and install sort of our system and advise them on how to take action on the insights that they're getting, what they're seeing and what they're doing in the company. Because at a core, I think the biggest value add that we provide is visibility and the opportunity to become more consistent. Because I don't know how familiar you are with like the sort of online money making space and how many different offers there are out there right now and ways to make money completely digitally, right? It's been very disruptive, but in the same breath, things move really quickly. And so people would make a lot of money, and a lot of people could show one really good month, but there was no consistency. And so when people started making money, but they haven't gone through a full cycle of like an up and down of a market, and they don't know how to approach adapting what they're selling or how they're selling it or their messaging or whatever the case is, then they could have a huge drop in revenue, and the company could die within a month or two. And so they were very vulnerable. A lot of these companies were very vulnerable from that aspect. And so us coming in and selling using our like unique mechanism, if I can call it that, being able to offer like tangible ways to find consistency and repeatability in what companies were selling was our way like into sort of the market. So at a core, that's kind of what we do is visibility. And then our expertise now is being able to look at and having the data of a bunch of different offers in different markets, using what does well from other people to be able to implement it into, companies that we actually advise or consult. And then very, very few companies we would take on as like a full scale growth partner, where we would be more hands-on managing sales teams, um, aligning sales and marketing, product, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I think pretty much touched on everything, that the journey to how we got to where we are now, and what the offerings are and where we're at the moment.
Yeah, incredibly fascinating. So would that then be part of your kind of execution intelligence framework as it's kind of listed on your website there?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up, because it's something that I would love to say that we coined the term, because I haven't seen it anywhere else, but someone maybe watching this or somewhere in the world has probably come up with something related to that term too. And so I don't want to say that, but it's basically, and we're releasing a full like white paper on this too. And it's related to the shift and trends that we're seeing in the market of just selling services, or selling in general, software services, whatever it is. And the people that we work with is, in a nutshell, it's basically the biggest value that companies need to look at going forward is the output of their systems. So whether it's like you need to be able to measure the output per system that you're implementing, the output per person that you're having, because just having access to like tracking all the inputs that you're doing is great, but the biggest lever that is going to help you move forward really quickly is to be able to track and quantify the value of your outputs. And so that's why hence the term like execution intelligence, for you to be able to see how quickly not only how valuable the insights that you get are and how accurate they are, but how quickly you're able to take insight on that. And this goes back to me saying, when we were starting to sell this, it was like the product itself was good, or like the insight was there, but if you give it to someone that's not able to take action and execute on it, then it diminishes the value hugely. Yeah, so that's kind of what it's about, and that's what we're trying to help companies implement moving forward, and just through that help them move a lot quicker.
Yeah, no, for sure. It sounds like you guys do an amazing job of keeping your clients out of that kind of boom and bust cycle, but how do you manage that internally? Do you experience that at all, or have you kind of nailed it down?
Yeah, great question. I think it's traditionally the consulting industry has always been more of a pull acquisition than a push acquisition. So consulting is not usually something that you go to a company and you pitch it to them and you sell, because it's something, especially if you look at the large corporations that or large consulting firms, it's like a very generalist thing, and companies would go to them when they need it. They don't go out and actively always sell. You're not gonna, I mean, what do you write an ad on or make an organic post on is like consult your business if it's that general. And so the problem with a lot of the people that are breaking out of corporate or starting their own like boutique consulting firms is that they follow what they know and what they've been taught from either their time in corporate or their market research that they've done, and try and mimic sort of the structure and approach that those companies take. But it's very hard to do that, and it's very difficult because of exactly that sort of boom and bust cycle, that it takes a long time to build it up. You need to go and put yourself out there a lot before you might even have someone to come reach out to you to do it. And what's your unique proposition and what makes you different in the market where someone would go to an already established company? And it's extremely inconsistent. So there's no predictability there. And so we knew this going into like the consulting, or taking the consulting route of it, of us like branding ourselves as sort of a consulting company. We knew we had to create a really powerful, unique mechanism that would pull people to us. We knew we had to do it in kind of a different way and be able to test really quickly to see what would resonate. But I would say the biggest thing that we're actively like have implemented from the start is not just taking on everyone and everything and to say yes to, we'll help you do this, or we'll help you, or if someone asks what we do, to say we help your business grow. Like, we can tell you exactly what we can implement in your company to achieve a specific outcome. And if that specific outcome is not what you're looking to achieve, then maybe you don't go to us and you go to someone else. But we are a lot more clear than other companies are in the consulting realm of what our ICP is, what the transformation is they're trying to achieve, and what our process is to help them achieve the transformation. If you go and look at the consulting companies that have been around for ages, and you go look even at the case studies, like when you read it, it is incredibly broad. They would say something like, we helped optimize the financial transaction processing, or we help improve the bottom line. Like there's nothing tangible that you could take from that usually when reading any of that to say this is exactly what you did. You speak to any consultant, you're confused afterwards than you were before speaking to them, asking them what they do, because they couldn't even explain to you themselves because it's so broad. It's like everything. And so because they have this name and they've been along forever, people come to them, and that's kind of what keeps them alive in a sense. When you're smaller, you're boutique, you're starting out, you need to know why you're unique, and you need to be able to go to market with a more productized service than just broad, I'll help you grow, or I'll consult your company. Because that means nothing. There's no outcome, like specific outcome to achieve. There's no specific steps. Like, you can only sort of push and go and sell something when you know exactly what you're selling and you know the outcome that it brings and you know who you're targeting. So I think we haven't really experienced that. And I honestly don't think we're going to, simply because we were very proactive from the start in understanding that we need to we need to be quick with it, be unique, and deliver a more productized service than just broad. Like, if we started from the get-go and say, we'll help your business grow, that is too broad. That means nothing, right? So I think those are the three things that really helped us from the beginning stay out of that cycle, and especially the productization of the service that we're selling, which is consulting, right? To allow us to more proactively go and sell it instead of just waiting for people to come to us.
Yeah, very well said. That being said, where do you see Emberley going in 6 to 12 months? How do you plan to get there? If you had a magic wand, what operational blockages would you kind of wish away?
I think the hard part with growing a consulting company as well is, in an ideal world, what we would want is to just copy and paste myself and my co-founder,
Yeah.
like tenfold over, to be able to apply our experience that we built up, knowledge, understanding of things, the way we think, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't do that. It's really hard. And it's not a type of company where you can really, in a SaaS company, you just hire more devs and they can execute on a specific task. This is different. This is more creative thinking work and problem solving. And people do it in different ways. And some people are better at that, and some people just aren't. So where we kind of want to be within the next year is having 2 to 3 companies, whether it's software, agency, consulting, coaching, whatever the case is, that we're very hands-on managing. because that's what is fun for us. Like the building out the tech and infrastructure, we have people for that now. Like that's not the most fun part. For us, the fun part is taking what we see and being able to problem solve and understand how to take this company from where they are to where they want to be, or if they're not profitable, how to make them profitable. The creativity behind that is the sort of fun part. And I think a lot of people, they mistake consultants for being like these boring people, but there's a lot of creativity behind it that I think is just not expressed very well. Maybe it's because of the generalization of it, but anyway, that was off on a tangent. In 12 months, 2 to 3 of those companies that we're actively managing, and then just sort of as top tier priority, then a handful, I'm talking like less than a dozen really good companies that we're advising for, where it's less of a hands-on stake and more of a just long-term advisory role of companies that we could choose that are in emerging markets, so that we really enjoy working with. And then the sort of last tier is just companies that come to us that just want the any data infrastructure or tracking implemented. Because we've kind of dabbled with the idea of going down the SaaS route too and building something for that. But the BI space is a very hard space to be in. I don't think that's something that we want to do in the near future at all. But we could have as many companies as possible, honestly, being able to understand and track and advise on their data, because that is just as valuable, if not more value, as the revenue that it brings. Because that, again, is, I think, a key factor that allowed us to move as quickly as we did, is because we had access to a bunch of companies' data and we could see what was moving the needle, what funnels were working really well, what certain companies were doing, and to get to the stage that they were at. And that helped us build out our sort of knowledge base and assets to make it repeatable in any other company.
Amazing. Okay. I think we're running low on time here, so just gonna wrap things up with a quick rapid fire, just 10, 20, 30-second answers, just
Yeah.
what's off the top of your head. All right. What is the biggest myth about predictable consulting revenue?
The biggest myth about predictable consulting revenue, I would say probably that it's tied to how busy you are. A lot of companies, like, they don't fail because they're doing bad. They fail because they want, and they overblow too quickly. And then when there's a dip, you crash and burn way quicker than if you stay lean and so I think being like, yeah, just being super busy does not mean you're growing at a sustainable rate and a predictable rate.
For sure. One action that a founder could take this week to kind of start to steady cash flow,
In a week to start to steady cash flow,
or get on the right track to get there.
test more, because I did a whole video on this, and this is something we preach a lot, is being able to test, to understand, and whether you have product market fit, how to find it, and what to do once you have it, because you will get to a point of sustainability when you've tested enough and you know when you found product market fit and whatever it is that you're offering. Test more, track more.
Okay, great. And finally, what is the best business lesson you learned from starting that business at 15 that you still kind of follow today?
There were a lot of learning curves, a lot of failures as well throughout that. I guess the best thing that I have taken out of that I still apply today is people management, whether it's on the client side, because it was more so service based as opposed to what I started out initially, which was selling products and direct to consumer. You don't get the opportunity to interact with clients as much. And because now I'm also in a very people driven business, everything that I've learned from interaction with clients, developers, my team, and just how to manage that and tie that in and sort of grow that in general was probably the most valuable thing that I still apply today. And it's hard to pinpoint it, but as a general rule, just people management was a really important skill for me to learn through that.
For sure. It's a very important one.
Yep.
All right. Well, Jaryd, terrific insights. Thank you so much. Where can listeners connect with you or learn more about Emberley?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is one place where I kind of post a lot. Right now, we're focusing on a lot of longer form content that we're posting on YouTube, some snippets on Instagram or LinkedIn. Myself and my co-founder, we have our own personal pages that we're being a lot more active on posting insights and kind of even more so about what we were talking about today. So YouTube, where we're starting to be a lot more active now, LinkedIn, and then Instagram and Twitter as well. Twitter. So we're pretty much on everything.
Okay, great. Well, if today's conversation sparked any ideas, share this episode, tag Jaryd with your takeaway. Until next time, thank you.